Hello, everyone. Give it about 10 to 15 seconds for folks streamed to update and tune in. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Tech Talk, Lessons from Building and Breaking Ledgers. My name is Philip Cioni. I'm an engineer for the Ledgers team here at Modern Treasury, and I'll be your host today. Joining me today are two leaders building products that rely on ledgers. We have Amy Worthington, Senior Director of Product at Bamboo HR, and Pedro Oshika, Head of Engineering at Nomad. So thank you both for being here today. Before we get started, we have a couple of housekeeping items to cover. First, we will be recording today's session, and we'll be sure to send it out afterwards for sharing. And second, this is meant to be an interactive session. So if you have a question, you can submit them to the right of your screen. We'll tackle questions throughout, and if we miss yours, we'll reach out afterwards. Now, before we get into the good stuff, we do a thing here at Modern Treasury where before a chat like this, we share our food hot takes, which are deliberately controversial takes on food items, like whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich. So to set the tone, I'll start with mine. And to start off extra spicy, I will say that onions, grilled, raw, whatever, onions in general make food worse more than they make it better. So I'll start there, and Amy, I'll pass to you.
That is a hot take. I like onions, but I will say mine might be more controversial, which is I think cheese is overrated and should not be put on any dish.
Wow.
Yeah. I used to be an avid cheese fan, not anymore.
Is it like a traumatic life event or something? That's a hot one. Oh my gosh. All right, Pedro, we'll toss it to you.
Mine, I'm not sure how this is abroad, but here in Brazil, we have a very controversial one, which is ketchup on pizza. So I love it, and that's it.
Not like as a replacement for the sauce. Just you have your pizza sauce, your cheese, and then ketchup on top.
And it's tomato in the end of the day, so it's
wow. Okay, if we have any viewers from New York, I'm sure they have plenty of opinions about that one. Cool. So now that we've broken the ice a little bit, let's jump into the meat of content. So it may be easiest to start with the products that your teams are building and what your own roles are, just as an introduction. So Amy, we can start with you.
Yeah, so I'm Amy. I am the Senior Director of Product at Bamboo HR, and we have a payroll product that we are using Modern Treasury behind the scenes to help us move all of the money for our customers and then also pay their taxes, all of those kinds of things. We pay payroll, we pay taxes, we pay garnishments, all those kinds of things. And then we also use it for all of our ledgers and reconciliation of that business. So it touches all the parts of money movement on the Bamboo side.
Very cool. And Pedro?
Hello, everybody. I'm Pedro. I'm Director of Engineering here at Nomad. Nomad, it's a fintech that provides international account for Brazilians, mainly Brazilians, and they offer access to this international financial system, but then mainly in the US. So our customers can have a deposit account in US dollars, can make payments internationally, can invest in the US stock market, and mainly our value proposition is to offer Brazilians a more secure and stable economy, which is the US economy, as an option to the Brazilian economy that is very volatile, and that's it. Oh, and today I'm responsible for the banking product, so the banking account and the payment services, and that's it.
All right, thank you both for sharing. So for our first question, we'll start with that it might not seem like HR and payroll have a lot of overlap with international financial services, but the underlying infrastructure for money movement tends to be the same, regardless of what you deliver to an end user. And the backbone of that infrastructure is, of course, the ledger database. So all of us probably have some horror stories we can tell about how hard it is to build a performant database that can scale with company offerings. So the first question is, what do you both think is the hardest part of ledgering? Pedro, we'll start with you this time.
I think the hardest it's what the context and all the process that you have around the ledger itself. mainly the reconciliation process. I think our major horror story here at Nomad is the Synapse case. Synapse was a banking as a service provider, where Nomad built its first version, and it went bankrupt. And most of Synapse customers had problems retrieving their deposits. Synapse used Evolve as a bank, and we understand that the major problem were they're not reconciling their ledger, the Synapse ledger, against the deposits on Evolve, which was the bank behind Synapse services. And that's it. That case caused major problems to lots of Synapse customers, and Nomad could migrate out of Synapse months before they bankrupt. So that was a very close situation where we could have a significant impact to our customers. So the major problem was reconciliation, and instead, and also there's after that there was a regulation being discussed in the US, which was caused exactly for because of this case, where the banks which provide their services to fintechs, they need to report the individual positions of all of the customers inside a pooled account. So this was definitely our story.
Yeah, counterparty risk is definitely a big existential fear when you're dealing with financial institutions. Amy, toss to you.
Yeah, so ours, I mean, I could list lots of things that are hard about ledgering. I think everyone who's watching also probably feels the same way. There's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of nuanced detail, there's a lot of unique behaviors around how businesses run. But I do think for us, one of the biggest things has really just been as we've been moving from our old way of doing things and figuring out the way we want to do them in the future with Modern Treasury. Like the heaviest lift for us has been getting on the same page around how we want the ledger process to work in the future. Part of the reason we're making a shift is because we want to modernize and automate and scale a bunch of the things that we've been doing. And so just getting everyone across the business who has skin in the game on the same page around things we're willing to let go of or change versus where we want to head, like that's required a lot of love and time and investment to get on the same page. I think getting down to like the really minute details and making sure that we're all making the best decision to set us up for the future has required a lot of effort and for sure has been hard. I think the other part of it too is just being in a position to understand that people's internal roles will change and being open to understanding like what that means and kind of abating some of the fears of like, nope, you'll still have a job. It's just going to look different. You're going to have more time to do some of these other things, and just kind of working through kind of the end users and how it impacts their day to day, going from how we've done it to how we will do it. I think those have been the harder parts for us just because it involves people and it involves their expertise and a lot of those things, and making sure that we are taking care of that, as well as answering all of the like, how will we do it technically? And how do we make sure everything balances? Like all of that kind of stuff is hard, but it's the people component that I think has been the bigger lift for us.
Yeah, I can definitely empathize with that. To throw my own 2 cents in to both of your answers, I feel like the most difficult part has been just the low margin for error that both of you touched on a little bit. With some products, the worst case scenario may be a customer not receiving an item they purchased, or maybe there's a defect in the item, a refund was processed late. But when it comes to ledgering and financial products, someone may be missing a rent payment or missing a paycheck. They may have to get lawyers involved. They may fail an audit, have to pay a fine. And every moment you spend trying to fix these problems, someone out there does not have money they should have or is losing money because of the problem with the ledgering system. So that's kind of what's always kept me up at night, is knowing, what if something's broken right now at 4 a.m. and an alarm hasn't fired or something's going wrong, because there's no margin for error in this sort of industry. So cool. Moving on to our. I'm sorry. Did you have something to add?
No, I was just going to say, when you're dealing with money, and people's money, you can't mess around.
Absolutely. So that kind of leads into our next question, which is about infrastructure. So getting the infrastructure design right is probably the best risk mitigator we have, is just making sure problems can't happen in the first place. So what do you think are the biggest risks of not having those risk mitigators? Specifically, what are the biggest risks of not having a performant ledger? Like, what's at stake for you in particular, Amy?
Yeah, so a huge part of the reason why we're invested in making this shift and using Modern Treasury is because we saw what the risks were if we didn't. We do need to be able to move faster when it comes to moving money, keeping track of that money, making it auditable. Like there's a whole component of like, we need that to be faster for our customers and for our internal teams. We want to be more efficient in how we utilize our internal resources. We want to be way more reliable for customers. We want to have the optionality of multiple banks and redundancy and a variety of other things that Modern Treasury just makes so much easier. But I also think like we want to scale our team members. Like we are now in an age where so much can be automated and you can use a human to double check stuff. That like for us, the risk of having people manually having to do a lot of the things that can be automated in a much more reliable way is really significant. And there's opportunities for us to just figure out like how do we make sure that we reduce the need for internal team members to be involved in a lot of the details and get to a place where we're really confident on what we're double checking. I do think another huge component is just accuracy and auditability. Like doing that at scale becomes a lot more complex really quickly. And so there's this opportunity for us to just leverage all the tools and systems that Modern Treasury has created to get to a place where auditability is much easier than like today when we still have to use some of our historical stuff. Like we have to go run queries and do a bunch of deep dives to get answers where like in the future, we want that to be something that's available at the tips of our fingers at any time. And like those risks around not having audit data or even just having accurate data to feed all of the tech that we do every day, but then also when we do audits, like those are major risks to the business, especially as you start to grow in a meaningful way. And like that's kind of what motivated us to get to a place where we had a much more reliable ledger that performs in a different way, is automated in a different way, and where we use our internal team members in a very different way to review it.
Awesome. Pedro, pass it to you.
I see the risk is I divided it under two perspectives. The first one is what we have been discussing, which is the impact of on our customers' experience. So you are dealing with their money. So when our user, just a little bit of context, our users mostly use our product when traveling abroad. So it's way more efficient to spend on Nomad card than in their national cards here that they have in the current bank here in Brazil. So, and most of the Brazilians when traveling abroad go to the US, and most of the Brazilians that travel to the US goes to Florida, Orlando, Disney. So it's really frustrating when they are living the Disney magical moments and they have one transaction fail because we couldn't authorize their transaction. So I think this is one perspective, and the other one is a more perspective from the regulator side. So for instance, in our investment product, if we delay the execution of our customers' orders when our user wants to buy or sell any asset, we need to report if we have any delays in those executions. We need to report to FINRA and eventually suffer any consequences if we didn't do the transactions as expected. So I think this is the major risk of not having performance and ledger or not reliable infrastructure.
Right. And it ties back into what we mentioned a moment ago about the customer impact of something not going right. If someone's on vacation, maybe a once in a lifetime vacation, they try to swipe their card, it doesn't work. It's not just a minor inconvenience where they need to call customer support and get it resolved, right? Like they have potentially thousands of dollars of vacation they've already paid for that's being cut into and I don't use the word rightly or lightly, ruined, right? Because of financial software not behaving as it should. And they're kind of just powerless in the face of it. Now, we've talked about how difficult ledgering is, how scary it is, how much stress it causes us. But I want to talk about why it's worth it. We go through all this intense process, all this engineering effort to get the ledger working correctly. And the big question is why? How does the business become better through all these trials and tribulations of ledgering? We'll start with Amy.
Yeah. So for us, I mean, ours is fun. We get to pay people. Like at the end of the day, people get their paychecks, their taxes get paid to the government, their garnishments get paid, like all of the things that we take on responsibility for so many people across the country. Like that's just taken care of in a very reliable, consistent, easy way. And who doesn't love knowing that they're helping all these people just be able to live their lives because they're getting their paycheck? Like that's a really fun thing. But it's also worth noting. So like this one's a big one because we like Bamboo's mission is to set people free to do great work. We want people to have that freedom and responsibility, like from our customer perspective. But we serve two teams with our product. We serve external customers and who are running payroll and paying their employees, but we also have internal teams who are doing all of the money movement and all of the tax payments and all of the filings and all of the things with the government. And in addition to people being happy because they're paid accurately and on time, like we want our internal customers to have a much easier, reliable way to do their jobs. We don't want things to be cumbersome or scary for them. We don't want them to feel like feelings of dread around audits that are coming up. Like we really want them to have more capacity to do other things. And as our business has grown and scaled, more and more people's days have been caught up in the mundane and all of the really hard double, triple checking stuff. And so when things are working as it should be, like those people are set free to go do other things. And we have a very reliable, sustainable business that like we just know confidently is working how it should. And we like started to see places where we're saving one person hundreds of hours in a month just because of how we're changing some of these processes. And so I do feel like for us, like when it goes well, everyone's lives are better. Our customers are happy, both externally and internally. And like we're confidently moving all of the money that we're responsible for in an easy and seamless way.
Awesome. Those are some great examples. Pedro, what about you?
I can summarize the good examples with the instant, what we call here as instant experience. So we rely on Modern Treasure mainly to try to decouple our money movement in virtual and physical. So when we are moving money virtually, moving from one account to another account, we can do this instantly, and then when in the end of the day, when do our balance and all of our reconciliation, we then move the money physically, which is lower and expensive. So with this instant experience, we can provide some what we call the triple instant experience that we have today is when nomad customer is traveling abroad. We have a lounge in the biggest airport here in Brazil, in São Paulo, where they can, if they don't know Nomad, they can open their account. They can instant fund their account, which has a foreign exchange operation behind the scenes, but we can give him an instant buying power in US dollars. We can instant on board, do the transfer instant, print the card, and all of this instant money movement. It's what we believe that provides a very good experience to our customer, which is all based on this performant ledger.
Awesome. Yeah, it's easy as someone living in the United States to take for granted the fact that everywhere I go, my credit card tends to just work. I can travel to most countries and swipe my card, and even if they don't take dollars directly, the dollars are converted to local currency, either by Visa or MasterCard, American Express, and it always just works, so to speak. So providing the sort of same ease to the rest of the world is a huge benefit of doing this. And like you said, it's all backed by guaranteed financial integrity via your ledger, right? Everyone knows where all the money is, so there's no concerns about fraud or someone opening credit cards they shouldn't be opening or things like that. It just makes it very easy to go back to your example of people taking a vacation, just go on vacation, right? You don't need to call the embassy and go to the currency exchange station and go through all this extra process, pay fees all along the way. It saves customers money, and it just makes things easier. So from a final question, before we go to audience Q&A, I want to ask if you could go back to a critical decision point, knowing what you know now with plenty of retrospect, what would you do differently, if anything? So specifically, what strategies can you share with folks facing these same design challenges today? Pedro, let's start with you.
I think from our side, I would say that I would invest in all the content, all the process where we are implementing the ledger. I think another context, we built Nomad on top of many banking as a services providers. So we didn't have a ledger internal ledger for many years, because we rely all of this delegate the responsibility to this banking as a services. And when we started to have our own licenses, when we started to provide this instant experience where we can hold custody of our customers' money, we started implementing the ledgering system. First we consider building this internally. Then we ended up choosing Modern Treasure, and I think the major reason is because when I read a lot about the core banking and the ledgering markets, and I understand that the ledgering today it's a commodity, so there are lots of players doing. There's even open source solutions. So what we wanted by the time is to not have any headache, so we can focus on our core business. So although the ledger is it's the backbone of it's the backbone of most of our systems, it's not the core business itself. We understand our core business itself is to provide more services and more efficient services to our customers. So when we could delegate this responsibility to another player as Modern Treasure, we can focus on what really matters and what we can do best. So that's it. I would just invest a little bit more on auxiliary process like the reconciliation and things like that. But most of all, I would stick with the same strategy, which is to buy instead of build the system.
Awesome. Amy?
Yeah, so I mean, who doesn't have lots of ideas of how they would change things of previous decisions you've made, right? Like hindsight's always 2020. But I do feel like for us, probably one of the major things that, like, if we were to sit down as a group and make a list of the things that we would have changed, probably the biggest one is, it's worth noting, like, our payroll business is not the core part of Bamboo. Like, it's an add-on product. It's not like the heart. Like I'm sure many actually of Modern Treasury customers, like the heart of what they're doing is money movement every day. It is an add-on to Bamboo, and was an add-on that came years after our company had been founded. And so I think the biggest hurdle that we encountered was just getting everybody that was a key decision maker who doesn't live in the payroll business every day onboarded to how these systems work, how our teams work, the risks associated with them, the benefits of going and optimizing, the way that we want to think about money movement in the future, just like all of the education it took to getting everybody really in deep in a way that allowed us to then move forward with the decision. Like, I do feel like we got to this place where we got everyone aligned, we made the decision, we moved forward, and then we started to have all the really deep conversations with our payroll services group around, okay, we're going to go build this ledger. there are two things I think we would do. One, we would have sped up the education of that core decision maker group in a different way, because now in retrospect, it's like, oh, we could have shortened that conversation faster. I made it faster. The other is some of those core decision makers that reported to the people who made the decision up front, I would have involved them, just because some of the real debates that we had around like, what are we going to go build, came after we like got the green light to go make the shift. And I feel like we could have probably headed off some of the really hard discussions around what we were going to go build if we had involved those people sooner. But I mean, we just were taking it a chapter at a time. And I think in some of it, you don't know what you don't know. And it's not till you're in the implementation phase that you're figuring those things out together. But I do think there's just, we would have taken a different approach to getting people aligned internally if we could have gone back and done it differently.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. Those are the core questions we have for today. We actually have a few questions coming in from the audience. So I'm going to pose these questions to the group. So feel free to just chime in if you would prefer. So the first question is, when you first scoped your ledger, how did you decide what to build and what not to build? So you already know you're going to buy a ledger. What parts of the ledger do you build? What parts of the ledger do you pass?
I'm happy to help answer this one, at least from our perspective. So we are replacing an existing manual process and also standing up new banking partnerships and a variety of other things as a part of our transition. And I think for us, like the best way that we were able to approach it of just like, what are the absolute critical things that we need to stand up to at least take over what exists today? Then what are all the nice to have workflows that will enhance the way we do things in the future? And we had to just get really clear on like, what are the things that are absolute have to haves in order for us to keep running the business in this new world? And then like, how would we prioritize all the like sweeten the pot things that come after? And those are hard conversations, because in some cases, like our internal team members are still like, oh, we're not going to get all the value right out of the gate. And I'm like, we know, like we know that like it's going to be this iterative process. But for us, it was just like, what are the core essentials to what we need to have in order to keep doing what we're doing, and then knowing that we'll get to some of the other stuff afterward.
Awesome. Pedro, do you have anything you'd like to add?
In our case, we've been migrating most of existing flows to Modern Treasure. So, and we value simplicity a lot. So we try to move only the necessary flows. So we not currently is managing our balances and all the credits and debts itself. Other process like payments and the money movements, we all kept the implementation internal. So I would say that try to keep the simplicity and try to adopt the new product little by little, and that's it.
Cool. Thank you both. Our next question is pretty technical. Should operational events, reconciliation states, lifestyle tracking, intent to settle, file matching also be stored as double entry, or in a separate single entry architecture? What pitfalls, best practices should be considered? I can actually jump in on that one. That's a pretty technical question. Obviously, the general answer is it depends on your business, right? We are not giving legal advice. We're not giving business advice. This is a very challenging question. But from a high-level general view, the reason that GAAP accounting principles were created is that it should be physically impossible to lose money when you're ledgering. And for that reason, at least at Modern Treasury, our ledger is immutable. It is set in stone. Even Modern Treasury employees cannot go into our system and change your ledger's history. That is permanent, immutable. Something truly horrible and illegal has to happen for that history to change. With the idea being that at any point you can start from t equals 0 and come all the way forward to present time and recreate the history of every dollar or every unit of currency that's moved throughout your ledger up to right now, showing you what your current balances are. Now, for things like reconciliation states, intent to settle, file matching, Those things are a bit more flexible. You can reconcile things to the wrong payment. You can file match the wrong file. You can go back in time and say, actually, this file goes to this. This reconciliation was incorrect. We're going to redo some of the wiring here. And it's not set in stone. So my, again, personal opinion, this is not business advice, and this is also not, gospel or anything, is that double entry is useful when you have a truly immutable system of record where you cannot, for any reason, modify history, right? It has happened, it is permanent. And if you want to reverse it, you have to, create a reversal and reverse that transaction. You can't just go in the database and change it. For things like reconciliation, which is a bit more flexible, you can re-reconcile things, unreconcile them. Single entry with a little bit of audit trailing usually does the trick. Like, just to give a really easy example, let's say I have two transactions, I reconcile them together. I would see that this transaction has an audit log reconciled to transaction B. Transaction B says reconciled to transaction A. And then I have some data saying that, hey, there's a link between these two things. They've been reconciled. If I then unreconcile them, like just there's a button in my interface, I would have another audit trail. This transaction was unreconciled. This transaction was unreconciled. That's single entry as far as those transactions are concerned. They're saying, hey, I'm a transaction. I was reconciled and unreconciled. I don't really care to what. I don't care when. It happened at some point in time, and it's kind of a floating concept of whether or not I'm reconciled or not. I think then it's a little bit easier to go with a single entry system. But as far as pitfalls and best practices, I'd say that my own personal experience, the big lesson I have learned is to assume that you don't have half the use cases you think you have nailed down. There are so many ways to move money that if you have 20 things listed out for all the possible combinations of ways that reconciliation can change, be incorrect, have an error, be revised, just assume there's 40 and you haven't found the second half yet. So do much, much more due diligence than you think you need and really iron out those cases and take advantage of that single entry flexibility you have and say, we're resilient to errors, we're resilient to outages, we're resilient to bugs. Things will happen. And since the system is not carved in stone, we have a lot more room to resolve those problems in a more rapid way. So yeah, that's the pitfall I look out for is not assuming you have all the use cases ironed out. There's always going to be something that pops up when it comes to money movement. All right, next question. How do your teams handle reconciliation gaps in real time? Is it with alerting, rollbacks, audits? How do you prevent the system from getting bogged down from constantly just chasing these one-off errors?
Pedro, do you want to go first?
Yes, I'm thinking here. I would say our reconciliation gaps are mainly managed by another team, our internal financial operations team. So today we mainly have some tools that we built on top of Modern Treasury so we can monitor all of these gaps, and the team has everything they need to build this monitoring and all of this process. And so when we have any gap, they report to us, and I think that's we keep some level of segregation of functions, and I think that's it. The major problems that we have in those cases is when we launch many new use cases and the team doesn't have the time necessary to build all of this tooling, and somehow we ended up with some gaps that are difficult to identify. So
I think ours is similar. So when we were very first figuring out all the workflows we were going to build on top of Modern Treasury, we went through a process of understanding what are all the things we do today to handle reconciliation gaps. And a bunch of it looked like manual process. A bunch of it relied on emails being triggered by the database. A bunch of it looked like a variety of different things. And I feel like what we've tried to do is make sure that if there are gaps, we are still triggering the right processes that have existed historically. But in some cases, we've tried to optimize those as well, create better notifications for more targeted groups, or even just proactively helping provide better data around what's off or needs to be fixed. Ours is interesting because we have like really specific check-ins. We don't have money moving all the time. And so like we process payroll in batches. And so that some of what we're doing is tied to like actions other people are taking. And so it's a lot more deliberate. We're going and looking and doing the things as part of a bigger process. I do think as far as like the preventing the system from being bogged down, we've had lots of conversations between our engineering group, our product group, and the end users of most of what we're building, just to understand what acceptable uses of like connectivity are, right? Where data is syncing, or how confident are we in, you know, the gaps of time of them getting insight on something that's happening, and ultimately have just had to land on the right architecture to make sure that in most cases it's almost immediate, to make sure that, you know, we're not slowing things down or preventing them from knowing the right information to take action on things they need to go do. But it's a dance. Some of it we've had to figure out as we go, right? And I think part of it too is we've had to tweak and adjust as things have gone live, or as we started to work through things in real environments, and that's okay. Like we knew we were signing up for some of that to need to change as we learned more or did more, or even I think, you know, as things continue to change as far as like what's available on the modern treasury side, like we're committed to helping make it better and better.
Awesome. Yeah, from my own experience, we have a joke at Modern Treasury in a way where we say banks are going to be banks sometimes, and usually when you're looking at a problem like reconciliation gaps, your first thought is how do we prevent these from happening in the first place, right? The problem isn't the gap; the problem is how the gap came to exist in the first place. But sometimes, like you mentioned, Amy, at the end of the day, you're going to get a file from the bank that has no unique identifying information in it. You don't know what it reconciles to. All you have is, you know, $20 under the amount, and you say, well, I have lots of things that are also $20, but there's no way to tie it together. So that, yeah, it adds a little bit of like a dynamic to the problem where, you know, you want to address the root cause, but the root cause at some point it is out of your hand. So when we work with customers, we usually try to help them automate as much of that, you know, chore work away as possible, either by, you know, creating like, you know, some new setup with our webhooks for them so they can have more early alerting to like, hey, or there's a reconciliation gap that might be coming, or sometimes we will just delay it and say, hey, we're going to wait till the end of the day to tell you, because we know from experience that a lot of times things just kind of show up towards the end. So maybe you just need daily reporting, something like that. But yeah, to both of your points, it is kind of a dance, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and I do think too, like one of the things that shifted is that used to mostly require people manually catching those things, right? And I think that's the big shift for us, is like now we're just proactively notified and aware, and like that in and of itself has been a huge lift.
Yeah, that's a great point, because it's easy to forget that, you know, not that long ago, the way you knew there was a reconciliation gap is that you saw a cell in your Excel file that is supposed to say 0, and it doesn't, and you say, oh no, you know, let's get the pens and paper out, let's go find out where the missing money is. But nowadays it's much more streamlined.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump to one more question. Do you use the ledger for bank data reconciliation with internal data only? Do you have a use case for reconciling payment and money movement with third-party processors? And if so, how?
From our side, I think we have mainly two strategies. The first one is we do the ingestions we have third-party processors, we have in the end of the day, all the files that these processors generate, we have here on our end. So the first strategy is to ingest all these files into Modern Treasury, so we can build according to our accounting scripts. We used all the data in the same place, which is Modern Treasury, so we can reconcile everything in the same place. And the other strategy is to ingest everything, including Modern Treasury data, into our data lake, and then do the reconciliation in our own data lake with our data tools. So I think we use both strategies, and that's it. There's no right or wrong question. I think it's when we need some cohesion, to guarantee the data integrity, we tend to use to ingest into Modern Treasure. On the other hand, when we have just to match transactions, simply match transactions, we use our data lake, basically. That.
And I don't have a good answer here, mostly because our answer is no. Like we mostly right now are focused on standing up just money movement with our banking partners. So we haven't done a lot with third-party processors in any way.
Okay. Well, thank you. That is all the time we have for today. So I want to thank everyone for joining us, especially Pedro and Amy, our wonderful guests. If we didn't get to your question live, we'll do our best to follow up with you afterwards. And as a reminder, this session has been recorded, so we'll be sending out a recording of it soon. Excuse me. Also, Modern Treasury is doing our monthly virtual product demo live on November 20th. So come see the product in action, ask more specific questions about Modern Treasury itself, and the link to register is going to be in the chat. So thank you again, Amy and Pedro, for taking the time to talk with us today. Thank you again to our guests for attending and asking questions. And hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, we'll see you later.
Thank you.